Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video, I'm bringing to you all the 13 series that I read in 2023. You might think that the year has not ended yet and how I'm making this video. I've decided to not finish any other series except the ones that I'm going to talk about now in this video. I actually had this thought of wanting to read at least 20 to 25 series in 2023. But because of multiple reasons, I just strayed away from it and concentrated a lot more on standalone books, especially for the recommendation videos here. But I think it will get better in 2024, let's just wait and see. But 13 series is definitely not a small number, it is a good chunk. So if you're looking forward for some really good series recommendations, you should definitely watch this video until the end because I have some great series which I read throughout this year. I might be finishing one other series alone in December, which is Full Metal Alchemist, but that too I'm on the fence of right now, so I don't know for sure. Other than that, these are all the 13 series which I've read in 2023. So without any further ado, let's get into them right away. This is in no particular order, I'm just going to talk about them in random. The first one of which is The Celestial Kingdom Duology by Su Lin Tan. The first book is The Daughter of the Moon Goddess and the next one is The Heart of the Sun Warrior. This is actually a duology, but for some reason they are actually including a third book inside the series. I don't know why. The second book itself rounded up the series pretty well. And in this one we basically follow the Daughter of the Moon Goddess based on certain mythology from China. And I should say that this was quite good for a new adult kind of fantasy series. I cannot categorize it as young adult or adult also because it is exactly lying in between. And I'm saying new adult but not in a way it is teen thing. It is really subtle. It has romance but it is not the main part of the series at all at any instant. We follow our main character who's the Daughter of the Moon Goddess that is trying to get some rights that have been lost by her mother who's the Moon Goddess back from the king who actually took off those rights from her. It is quite emotional at instances, but other than that I cannot say there is anything that much special about this series. The world building was nice, the prose was also nice and easy to understand. There was not a lot of magic going on, so that was quite disappointing for me. Other than that, it was definitely a solid duology and I don't know why there's going to be a third book. In my opinion, it is quite good as it is, but let's see if the third book comes out, I'll definitely listen to that also. And including this series, there are also some other series which I listen to as audiobooks alone, so I'll be popping up the covers here obviously. So yeah, this is the series number 1. Next we have a super popular adult fantasy series. And I've also wanted to read the series for quite a few years now and finally I read it in Jan or Feb of this year and I should say that it was quite satisfying. The series is The Shades of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I actually have a series review of this one and also some of the others that I'm going to talk about in this video already published in the channel. All of them will be linked down in the description. So if you're interested, you can go forward and check them out. Now, while reading the series, I did not know that the continuation of this one, which is The Fragile Threads of Power, will be released in the second half of the year. If I had known it, I would have not read it in the first half and would have waited for the fourth book to get released. But not knowing it, I binged through all the 3 books and personally, I should say that I liked all the 3 books a lot. The third one is my most favorite of all the 3 and it's also a huge chunker. I'm not showing all the books here because it will become a huge mess for me to clean up after filming the video. But as a whole, it was a solid series and I can see why people love it and why it is super popular out there. It is very distinct, very unique. The concept of having 4 Londons parallel, basically like a multiverse and doing a lot of stuff within that itself is just really awesome. And I know V.E. Schwab always has some extraordinarily beautiful ideas and sometimes she does not end up executing them well. But in this series, I think the ideas plus the execution were just on point and I like the moral grayness of all the main characters here too. If I'm not wrong, we follow the same characters in The Fragile Threads of Power also. Let's see, I'll probably read it next year. Keeping that aside, this is definitely something which I enjoyed a lot at the beginning of the year. And now I just want to read more of V.E. Schwab's books. Next we have a Tamil series, just Sivagami in Sabadam by Amarar Kalki. Kalki is the author of Ponniyin Selvan, whose movies got released last year and this year. And I read that series last year. And I read this one also in February or March, I don't remember properly. But I just binged through this series also. It's a huge book, okay? This is a bind-up of 4 books inside the series and it's nearly 1000 pages long. That's not nearly 1200 pages long. But it moves so fast, okay? I've not read it in English, so I don't know how the translations are, but I want to read them. There are some very pretty covers that are available out there. I want to buy them, and I will end up buying them at some point in time. But if you can read it in Tamil, I highly suggest you to go forward and write in Tamil itself because Kalki's writing style is very engrossing, especially the beauty of Tamil that he makes use of in his books is something which just astonishes me always. There are certain lines which I read that did not have that much to do with the story or the characters, but made me cry because I just was able to relate with it so much because of the language. It is a historical fiction based on the Pallava dynasty who were actually ruling certain parts of northern Tamil Nadu before the Cholas took them over. It is a huge series and it will take quite a bit of time to read, but trust me, it is super fast paced and the characters are awesome. The plot is just like fire, and you'll also end up learning a lot of things about Tamil history. So if you're interested in it, definitely go forward and give it a try. The next one is a series which just took me by surprise off my feet, okay, because I thought this would be very normal and I had really low expectations for it. It is the Supernatural Investigations series by B.B. Alston. I read the first 2 books inside the series which are out so far. The first one is Amari and the Night Brothers and the second one is Amari and the Great Game. Both of the books were super engaging, okay? They did not feel like normal middle grade books at all. After Harry Potter, I think this is like top class middle grade fantasy because it is super unique, okay? It has both sci-fi elements as well as super magical fantasy elements throughout, and the characters here are really nice, okay? They feel so mature at the same time super childlike because they are children, and I just enjoyed both the books very much. The writing of the author is also super easy and it just makes you want to keep reading and flipping the pages because it is very easy to read. It is super digestible and also quite a page turner. It has certain mystery elements also going on, but for me just the mood of the series and the world that the author built like a parallel world since it's urban fantasy was really nice. I can compare it to Harry Potter only because after that series I was able to get that real feel good different kind of new world from this one only. I think I rated both of these books 5 stars and I will be reading the rest of the series also as the books get published later on. So if you're also someone who thought less about the series because it's middle grade, learn the lesson from me. It is really good and you need to try it. The next one is the sequel and the end to a series, actually a duology, and I don't think this book is that much necessary. It does hold the mood of the first book in multiple instances, but personally for me this was a step down from that first book which is like a phenomenon in the romance genre, and it is post-script by Cecilia Ahern, which is the sequel to P.S. I Love You. P.S. I Love You is definitely one of my all-time favorite books. This is good, but you know, the sense of hope and warmth that you get from P.S. I Love You is not available here because Holly is not still over Jerry in this one despite it being years after his death. And there are so many things that are going on in her life in terms of relationships, her career and what she wants to do with her life, leaving the professional and romantic aspects of it. All those things were really well explored by the author in this one, but personally I think it was definitely a step down from P.S. I Love You because after writing that book, it will be difficult for anyone to just go forward and live up to that standard because, you know, if you watch the movie or if you read the book, you know what kind of story it is and what level it is in. This obviously could not live up to it because, you know, the hype for that one and the value for that one is like so high in the world and super high in my heart too. Keeping all that in mind, I should say that this was pretty decent. It was not bad in any way. Just because it could not, you know, equalize my expectations with P.S. I Love You does not make this a bad book in any way. It is good and I ended up rating it 4 stars. I'm just saying all this because I can go forward and reread P.S. I Love You even multiple times in the future, but I will not reread this one. That's why I just said that it's a step down. The next one is a YA fantasy trilogy that is based on Indian culture and mythology, and it is the Tiger at Midnight trilogy by Swati Teerthala. All the 3 books inside the series are super well written, and I think the lengths of the books get shorter as the series goes on, and I should say that of all the 3 books, I just love the first book so much. The second and third books are okay, but they are not as good as the first book. Again, I went into this one also with very normal expectations. I did not, you know, expect a lot from the series, but it delivered something so much higher than what I had in mind. I listened to all the 3 audiobooks back to back in a time span of just a week or week and a half because I was not able to put down the series at all. Especially the writing of the author. The prose that she uses is super gorgeous. While she writes about the clothes that the characters are wearing, the kind of action scenes that they are indulging in, the romance that is shown to us here at multiple instances but not overdone, the world building, especially showing Indian culture properly for us and making us feel it Indian without overdoing it, all that was really well done by the author here. I just want to read more and more by this author, especially in fantasy that is inspired off of Indian culture. If you're looking for a good Indian-based fantasy series, you need to try this one. Next we have YA fantasy duology, and this is based on certain parts of African culture, and it is A Song of Wraiths and Ruins by Roseanne A. Brown. I read both the books again in a single month itself. For some reason, I kept on binging series when I read them in the first half of the year, and the second half I just left up that practice for some reason. Now in this series, we follow our 2 main characters, Karina and Malik, of whom Karina is the crown princess who's actually going to take over the throne after the death of her mother, and Malik is this normal boy from a very low class inside the society. how both of their lives get intermixed and what all they have to do in order to help each other out while trying to kill the other person is the actual plot of this first book. It is super action-packed and the representation of mental health in this one is really nice. I appreciate the author for giving a disclaimer in the beginning of the book saying that she has dealt with these issues which she is familiar with in terms of mental health with the knowledge that she has and with the experience that she has from her life. Because all of us deal with emotions and situations in different ways, right? And while reading this, some people might think that this is not the right way to deal with anxiety, but not everyone is equipped with deal with mental health issues in the equal way. Everyone just try to make do with what they have, and that was super resonant in this series. I cannot say that it is very different or out of the world in any way, but the setup against which the series takes place is very fresh, and I have not read anything like that before. And since it's action-packed, you'll not be able to put down both the books because something or the other keeps on happening and it will make you keep on flipping the pages. So yeah, again a very solid series. Then we have the series which took the most amount of time for me to read this year, and I read this series across 3 months, one book per month, because I was not able to read more than one of these books in 1 month because they are not only huge but super slow also. And the series is the Soldier Son trilogy by Robert Hobb. I want to read the entire Realm of the Elderling series by Robin Hobb, but before committing to such huge a series, I wanted to get a small taste of her writing and the way in which she explores her stories and develops her characters. That's why I went forward with this very not so popular series of her, and I just got an idea of how Robin Hobb's writing is. She concentrates a lot on the character development and everything that happens with them, and it is not also easy lives that she gives to her characters. They have to go through hell on earth in order to become the person whom they are by the end of the series. And the series is super slow, okay? It is like dead slow. And if you're someone who is used to reading fast-paced books, please don't read the series because it will just bum the hell out of you because it is super slow. Not even at one instant is the series fast at all. It is super slow moving and just stressing it as much as I can because it is dead slow, like it drags you through. But if you are someone who likes character development like me or world building in terms of geography like me again, you will like this. And surprisingly, for a series which is super old, in terms of its publication date, it has a lot of representation when it comes to mental health issues and body shaming that is done by the society on any individual whom the society does not consider to have the ideal or perfect kind of body. I think Robin Hobb is very foresighted when it comes to exploring such things in a series which is very old. It has its own issues, especially in terms of pacing for me. But other than that, I should say that this is a really good series, and you ask anything about the main character of this series and I have the answer for it because, we just get to know literally everything about him, starting from his childhood until his stories end in this series. So yeah, even though it is slow, I did like it, and I'm going to try other series by Robin Hobb also because I think they will be for me. Sorry for ranting about it being slow because it is slow and I don't want anyone to go forward and pick it up not knowing about it. So yeah, the Soldier Son trilogy is the next series. Next we have yet another Indian-inspired YA fantasy duology. This is actually a mix between Indian culture and Persian culture because the author herself is half Indian, half Persian. And the series is the Wrath of Ambar duology by Tanas Bhatena. And I should say I enjoyed both of these books very much, okay? I think it is even more relatable for Indian culture compared to any other culture because I was able to see like everything that was related to the series being tied to us Indians in every way possible. And I like the way in which the author made use of very normal traditional clothes throughout the series and made the characters wearing them and showing them to us throughout. If you're someone who likes the Ember Quartet by Sabaa Tahir, you need to try this one because it is also having the same kind of brutal world just like the Ember Quartet. And we have this antagonist in the Ember Quartet, right? The Commandant. We have a similar kind of character here too, which you will end up despising. I'm not saying whom you'll end up despising because I just hate that person to such a great extent that I don't want to consider them as a person. It just makes my blood boil even while talking about it right now. Again, the world building in this one is nice, and the main character seems a bit whiny because she just has to deal with being a teenager and trying to save the world just like in any other YA fantasy. But I should again say this was super action-packed, the characters were well written, and more than anything, the world building and the proper representation of Indian culture in this one was really heartwarming and fulfilling for me to read. I have a review of this one also, so do check it out if you want some additional info about it. The next series which I finished is actually the last book inside a trilogy, and it is also an Indian series. It is the Mahavatar trilogy or Narasimha trilogy by Kevin Missel. I read the last book, Prahlad, as an audiobook on the Audible Plus catalog. The entire series is available in the Audible Plus catalog, so you can listen to it as a whole. For me personally, I loved the first book in the series when I read it back in 2019. and I read the second book, Hiranyakashipu, in 2020. The second book was very, very bad for me because I did not feel like it was a book at all. It just felt like a filler in between. But the ending of the second book made me super intrigued for the third book because the part of the mythology that I knew in this retelling got over in the second book itself, and I was very interested to see how the author is going to extend the story in the third book. And I was super surprised and also satisfied with the direction that he took in ending the series because pure mythological fiction. The third book is pure mythological fiction, and it shows us how always the hero need not be the good person towards the end. They might end up helping the person whom they need to help, and sometimes it might get over their head and they might start self-sabotaging. Even while being self-aware, they might end up sabotaging themselves no matter what happens. I think I spoiled the series a little bit while saying such details, but if you are interested, just go forward and try the series. Again, it is super fast paced, very, very easy to read. If you are a beginner, you need to try the series because even Mrs. books are perfect for beginners, okay? They have the proper amount of English that can be read by avid readers, at the same time beginners also. And he writes books which are super fast paced. You can just start reading them and finish reading them the same day itself because they are like super easily consumable. The entire series was good, and I rated the third book 4 stars because it just exceeded expectations and was also a nice end for the series. The next series is again the last book in a trilogy, and I can easily say this is one of the most disappointing reads of mine from 2023, and I spent more than 1,000 rupees to get this book in hand, and I also had to wait for nearly a week to get it, and it was not worth it. Okay, it just makes me feel so sad to say that it is not worth it because it is from one of my all-time favorite authors, and the book is Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare, which is the last book inside the Last Hour series. The series itself is not like something which I was super interested in because I like all the other series. Even the Eldest Curses series is far better than the Last Hours for me. But I can see that there are a lot of fans for the Last Hours series just because of its aesthetics. I can see that it is the most aesthetically pleasing of all the series here. And these 3 covers are like the best in my personal opinion because they have really great illustrations on the front covers. But this third book was a huge letdown for me because there was so much build-up going on for a lot of couples or relationships inside the series, which took so much long to just get ended here. And I think this could have been just half the size if all those things had been resolved in the first 2 books itself because they just got stretched out so that they could end up being in here. As a whole, it was a disappointing read for me, and I think this is the only book by Cassandra Clare which I rated 3 stars because I did not like it. While I read it back in February, I rated the book 5 stars, and I think I did it because I spent a lot of money on it and I was in denial that I could not accept the fact that it was not good. But later on, I went back and changed the rating for this book because it does not deserve 5 stars. It deserves only 3 stars from my end because it is not good. And we as Shadow with the Chronicles fans deserve a lot better an ending than this one. It does make me sad, but that's the truth. Next, we have a manga series, which is Uzumaki by Junji Ito. It is actually a bind-up of 3 volumes. That's why I'm considering it also as a series. Now, this was okay, but it was also quite disappointing for me because it was super hyped, and the idea for this one is brilliant. Okay, I understand all that. And I also read it on my Kindle only, not my Kindle. I actually borrowed it from a friend and I read it from their own account. And this was not worth it, okay? I thought I was going to get a lot more out of it while I started reading it. And it just felt like a collection of short stories which had the same concept but executed in different ways across different places inside the same town. And for me, this was not worth it. Okay, I'm sorry to say it, but I know that there are a lot of fans, especially for this manga out there. And that's the reason why I also went forward and tried it. And I ended up getting disappointed because it did not satisfy me in any way. I'm not saying that it is bad, I'm just saying that it did not work out for me. I can see that there are pieces of the story that are shown to us and then all of those pieces crystallized together towards the end. But for me, that crystallization did not work and it did not feel like all the pieces fit in properly, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that was quite disappointing for me. Other than that, it was okay and I don't regret reading it in any way. And the last series which I read has a lot of mixed emotions from me, and it is the Serpent and Drought trilogy by Shelby Mahiran. And the only reason why I want to read the series is because I got the second and third books for the series at such cheap prices. I think I got each one of the books at just 130 rupees during a sale on Amazon. And the first 2 books were okay and the third book was not good for me. It was just lazy writing in my personal opinion. This one was quite surprising because I did not expect it to be as good as it is. And the second book was a bit step down from this one. Still, it was not bad. And the third book definitely is bad. Okay, in my opinion, it is very lazy, and certain things that the author does there just felt like she did not know how to extend the story and just not to add a few more pages in there. She did certain things, so it was quite disappointing. And I don't think I'd be recommending the series that much to anyone because there are so many other good series which have the same enemies to lovers kind of trope out there, which are done much better, and the world building also having been done better. This isn't bad per se, but it is not good either. It is very mediocre, and the amount of hype it gets is something which makes me question the recommendations that I get from certain booktubers and bookstagrammers out there because this is definitely not worth it. I mean, the first and second books are okay. The third book is definitely not worth it. So yeah, that's the last series which I read in 2023. So yes, guys, those are all the 13 series which I read in 2023. And I'm hoping to read a lot more in 2024 because I have a ton of series in my physical TBR itself, which I'm super excited to read. And if you have read any of the series that I've talked about in this video, please do let me know your opinions of them in the comments below and we can have a chat on it. And if you did enjoy watching today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. And if you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.